Lovely presentation. So to take the panel discussion forward on Neobank, we would like to invite Mr. Aakash Tulsani, who is currently a senior principal at B Capital Group. We would also like to invite Mr. Vibhore Goyal, who's the founder of OneBank, and Abhijit would be acting as the moderator for this panel discussion. So over to you, Abhijit, and the panelists to take it forward. Thank you so much.
Sure. Hi Vibhore, hi Aakash. I hope you are able to hear me.
Yeah, Vijit, I can.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, Aakash.
Hello, Vibhore. Very nice to see you.
Same here.
Great guys. So getting this started very quickly, right? So I have taken the audience through the kind of white space that the neobanks are operating in, both on the retail side and on the SME side as well. Would love to know your thoughts on how you see this white space as how it will evolve, how sustainable it is, and basically how attractive it is in terms of being profitable, being sizable, and all.
Okay. So Vijit, I'll take first. And Aakash can answer it from broader perspective. He must have access to a lot more fintech than I do. So fundamentally, I think, Abhijit, one of your slides showed the traditional banks, mostly customers are 45 plus years of age, right? That is the place where most of the people are using it.
Yeah.
India primarily has median age of 28, right? So I think 18 to 45 is clearly an open space. These are the perfect guys who want technology, who want experience, right? And are who willing to have more, right? One of the example I remember was people don't really have expectation from a bank, right? If you even talk about expectation, they'll say, what expectation? Just keep our money safe, right? That is what they want fundamentally, right? I would have expectation from a cafe, right? My coffee should be smooth, the place should be clean, but that is not how banks are being seen today, right? So I think this is a vast area, and we're, like you said, just starting up, right? So we only have very small segment with us. We're just starting up. We started onboarding about 3 months back, right? So I think there's a great potential for growth.
Okay. Aakash, your views?
Yeah, no, look, if we step back and see, just to give you context, we are a global fund, so we track sort of sectors globally, and financial services is a big area of focus. But even when you step back and see 2005, when Kotak Mahindra started, it was maybe a 600 million valuation company, much, in fact, smaller than some of the fintechs that you've listed here. And over the next sort of 15 to 20 years, you see they have compounded and become like $50 billion company. So financial services is a key essence that drives the economy. And fintechs are a new frontier on which a lot of these financial services will be built. So as sort of India progresses to a 6 trillion economy, we feel that some of the value creation, both for consumers, for investors, for all stakeholders, will be driven by some of these new age fintechs. So I think the opportunity is immense. I think the question, of course, is how we get there, how soon we'll get there, in what fashions, what business models work. But I think there will be another Kotak soon, and many more Kotaks coming out from this sector.
Hopefully. Guys, I think the next question is sort of dovetailing from the earlier one. We talked about there are significant possibilities in the sector. What are the sort of concrete tailwinds that are driving the sector? And how sustainable are those tailwinds? That is one part of the question. And second part of the question is, if we are growing, what is the scale of growth that we are anticipating? Like, we estimate it to be 100 million customers in like next 5 years, right? What are your estimations looking like?
So for us, instead of talking about tailwinds, right, because we just started, right, and I'm a pilot, right, so when we are taking off a plane, headwinds are more favorable, right, and sadly or opportunity wise, right, COVID has given us a really great start, right. during COVID, financial wellness for employees has become the key focus area for employers, right? Which is where they are focusing on, right? So a sales cycle which could have taken a month for us from B2B perspective, right, now takes about 7 days for us, right? Everyone wants to focus on it. So that's a great head start, right? Now the point is of tailwinds, and tailwinds in my mind is educating a customer. They're willing to open an account through us, not a primary bank, right? Regulatory bodies, investment coming into picture. All of these are great tailwinds, right? Which will help us grow very, very fast. In specifically our area, we are into white collar salary folks, and we recognize ourselves as a payroll bank instead of a neobank, right? That is what we want to play in, right? I think we have 119 million white collar salary folks, right? We want to onboard around 25 million of them by 2025. That is a target for us.
Okay.
Look, obviously, as you know, as Vibhore mentioned, there are we are very early in terms of penetration of financial services in India. You touched upon on a couple of slides, reflecting on basic things as bank account penetration, lending penetration. But at a very philosophical level, Indian banking till now has catered a lot only to well-heeled individuals, big corporates. So there are big gaps sort of coming in MSME sector, salaried individuals as sort of the problem Vibhore is solving, sort of early graduates, students. So I think the biggest sort of thing going for us is as we move from a 2 trillion to a 6 trillion economy, the penetration for financial services is just going to increase.
Yeah.
And so the tailwinds are identifying sort of which is the right segment to go after, catering the product, unlocking distribution, cater to sort of your particular audience. And I think that's where a lot of big businesses can be built. But we are, in fact, I think we are very, very early, I feel, in financial services penetration overall. So I guess tailwinds are massive overall in the economy.
I'm sorry, I had gone off because of a power issue. I hope this is audible. I'm visible and all.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah. So, guys, my next question is, what are the needs? Maybe Vibhore, you can answer from a sort of payroll perspective, and maybe Aakash, you can answer from a retail perspective. What are the needs that the neobanks are solving, which is like significantly better than how the traditional banks serve the customer needs? What are those 1 or 2 needs that are like truly 10x better for neobanks?
We are still in retail banking, right? As a category, we are solving a target segment of payroll side, right? But our target is still retail, right?
Sure.
Now, to give you an example or a correlation, when I was in Microsoft, we had 3 different accounts, right? Fundamentally, I had a bank account with Citibank for my salary, right? I had an MX card for my corporate expenses, and then we had a solution like Zetas of the world for employee benefits. Right, I had to go through 3 different KYC processes. I had to sign multiple papers for all 3 to come together. Right? And this kind of a solution, which is clean and neat, is only available to probably 1% of the market. Right, most people don't have this. Everything comes into a single account. Technically, India doesn't get corporate credit cards. Right, employee benefits are poorly implemented. Right, so as simple as saying meal card, which we all have, right, probably have. The penetration is like 10%, right? 80% of the people are paying taxes on the food, and then there are newcomers like Slice and all, which are burning money on providing those benefit and cashbacks, right? Now, instead of providing a 10% cashback capped at 25 or 250 rupees, right? If you go on Swiggy and use your card of a meal card, right? You save 30% taxes, right? That is significantly higher than what you would find from a cashback. Right, and that kind of inefficiency in the system exists, which is what OneBank tend to resolve for. right? This can actually result in up to 5% of salary increase, right? And without costing anything to anyone.
Great. Maybe Akash, anything that you have observed like significantly better, any customer anecdotes that you could share that you would be receiving from your portfolio companies? Maybe?
Yeah, we are, I'll take both an SME and a retail lens to it. We are big investors
Sure.
in Fi and Khata Book in a way which are solving two different needs of, SMEs and retail. But at a very fundamental level, I think some of the needs, I think we generally tend to evaluate neobanks on two axes. One, I think, is a very important axis is customer satisfaction, which includes a blend of the UI UX, the sort of NPS, the customer support. Because traditionally, as you sort of reflected, it's not an experience that you're always happy about. Like growing up, whenever I used to visit some of the banks with my parents, generally it used to be a day's affair where you're standing in queues, trying to figure out where your loans are, where your accounts are, and it was always a painful experience. The younger generation isn't used to this experience. They are used to ordering food in 10 minutes. They need access to their bank accounts digitally. And so the UI UX, which in a way, and customer NPS sort of blends into the experience that you're offering. And I think there are a lot of gaps that a lot of people are solving for in different ways. I think the second axis is an important axis, and we are waiting for how sort of folks solve it. Is essentially, can this lead to a better, either are you able to access better credit? Are you able to save more? Are you able to essentially translate this banking experience to an improved profit as a business, as an individual, more savings? And that is something that we are looking for. Because if you see large outcomes like Neobank, fundamentally, banks in Brazil used to be a fantastic business. In anywhere across the world, if you wanted to open a bank, you would go to Brazil because you could lend at like 30-35% interest, and that's what really actually at the heart at which Neobanks are. So I think we are waiting. We're seeing how sort of some of the new fintechs solve this particular axis. That's where I think the pain point gets also resolved. So very cautiously optimistic because I think UI, UX, and customer support, I think the tech first community is doing a fantastic job in just giving a 10x outcome on that particular axis.
Yeah. And just adding Abhijit on to Akash's point, right? Where it boils down, all of this is personalization, right? When your experience is actually truly personalized. To give you an example, when I walk into a Starbucks, right, where I visit regularly, right, he calls me by name and says, "Hey, Vibhore, your usual," and I say yes, and that's my order, right? I don't have to stand in a line. I don't have to tell what I need and how to pay, right? But banks where I've been working or where I've been banking for about 10 years, right? Still, I have to transfer money to my mom after my salary credit. It's a 2 minutes process, right? Why can't it be 5 seconds process, right? It's amazingly unknown to me, right? From an external point of view, right? So I think where it will all boil down is very, very personalized behavior, which is what everyone is looking for, which is what we all enjoy, right? A platinum member in Vistara gets recognized by name as soon as he boards, right? That is experience we are looking for, and that is what we want to build on.
Sure. So, guys, the proof is in the pudding is what they say. I understand the pudding is still being cooked and it's going to be awesome going forward. But can you throw some light on how the metrics are looking for you, like some of the growth metrics, some of the NPS metrics? For us, I was amazed to see the NPS scores, right? And I think that is happening across all fintechs, that people are so used to the kind of services that traditional banks provide. They're very, very happy with the fintechs. So how are your metrics evolving and how excited are you about how they are going to evolve forward?
So Vijay, for us, we started actually going out about 3 months back. That's the only journey we had till now. In last 3 months, to give you some sense, we have signed about 30,000 customers, and we have a wait list about 1.5 lakh customers, right? The customers we are talking about with an average salary of 5 to 6 lakh rupees, not the gray collar or white collar folks. If you look at this mathematics, right, if I can just onboard the waitlist onboard, right, that's like $6 billion of salary flowing through OneBank system, right? And our unit economics is such that we will make about 1% of that, right? So it's a great time for us to be out there. We just need to close our beta phase, go full on, raise more funds, and be able to speed up the onboarding process. But the initial traction is very high. On the customer experience point of view, there are only two metrics which we focus on as a company, right? We focus on what is the first response time, right? When a person pings us on WhatsApp or any other channel, how much time is our team taking to respond for the first hello, right? Is what we focus on. We do not penalize the team on saying how much time did it take for your problem to get resolved, because in that push the team starts to say, "Sir, your problem has been resolved," and do half-hearted work, right? So our first focus is how quickly can you respond to them, and how many people who have you onboarded are coming to even the payroll system or the system for them to ping in, right? So those are the two only metrics which we are getting. On customer side, we are seeing great traction. Like I told you, 7 days is what it takes for us to close the corporate, right? And gets us about 100 to 200 accounts.
Wow. Good stuff, Vibhore. Wish you all the best.
Thanks.
Yeah. Aakash, any takes here?
Yeah, look, I have a slightly different take on the NPS. I feel without having a good NPS, I think you'll find it very tough to compete against banks which have large scale, large trust. So NPS to me is actually table stakes. I think because in this business, if you're seeing any fintech, your only right to existence for now is the fact that you deliver a marvelous experience compared to the traditional incumbents. That keeps you in the fighting. Now, the key question for us is, how do you win? And for us, I think, it's an interesting question on what sort of the metric is. But effectively, what we are trying to measure is, are you taking a massive share of wallet? Are you the primary account? Can you be the primary destination, both for the business and the retail, both for the business and the SME, sort of the daily consumer? Can you be the default go-to place? So are you trying to, build your savings bank account into this? Are you trying to take a massive share of your lending requirements as a business through some of these fintechs? And while everyone won't, because fundamentally, again, this is a trust business and it takes years to build that level of trust in financial services. But we are looking for early signs on how you can do that. So I feel NPS, it needs to go beyond NPS, and the next wave will be about measuring those aspects.
Yeah, of course. So right now, I think the neobanks are playing in the high engagement, building sort of the engagement part of the business. And going forward, they have to look at LTV, right? So diversify their revenue sources and all those sorts of things. Now, the elephant in the room, right? So the last slide of the presentation talked about incumbents. We were looking at players like SBI with their YONO offering, maybe Kotak with their 811. How do you see these incumbents sort of reacting to your presence in the market? And how are your thoughts on how you want to sort of strategize, how to give your customers a differentiated experience, maybe? And maybe how do you see this threat from the incumbents evolving over the next few years?
So, I think, again, we might have a slightly different view from Aakash perspective. See, for us, there are two different ways of approaching the problem, right? Either we can coexist with the banks, right? or we can try to be a bank, right? Like Akash mentioned, it takes long time, right, to set up that trust and the build and the infrastructure which banks have already put in, right? So in my mind, this is kind of reinventing the wheel if I'm trying to not milk on in the process they have built out, or the trust or the brand value they have created, right? So I don't want to build that part, right? I want to build on top of it. So we have been always been in sync with what the bank are doing, right? Our partner is actually Kotak, right? And Yes Bank, right? So fundamentally, both of them are digital banks. They both have some way or form of neobank alternate already existing in the market. But if you see the problem with 811 kind of an account, right? Those are not the primary accounts, right? People open them as a secondary account where they can keep and park some savings because the higher interest rates are there, right? And they don't see transactions. So typical deposit would be around 3,000, 4,000 rupees, which is what a or 811 will see, right? But if you are a primary account, and that is what is required for you to capture all the transactions. Otherwise, you can't really personalize anything, right? If you have one bank account with 10% of the transaction, you don't know the complete picture, right? For us to exist, we need to have absolute access to all the data, right? That is what all of these gives us. We want to be the primary bank. And a salaried guy's primary bank account, whether you call it laziness that he doesn't keep transferring money from his payroll account to a normal account, right? Whatever you call it, fundamentally a payroll account becomes his primary account, right? And we see about 4 transactions is a bank standard to say if it's a primary account, right? For us, about 10 transactions a month is a minimum before we classify that as a primary account for us, right? So fundamentally, we don't fight with the bank, right? And my money comes from bank fundamentally, right? A bank pays me about $75 odd, right, on a customer, right? So I don't want to fight. The point is of where you are actually focusing. What is your target segment? If you're focusing on people earning 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 3 lakh rupees, right? The banks don't have money to share. But if you're focusing on white collared folks, right? A typical bank makes $1,000 on a guy who earns 18,000 rupees monthly, right? Those are proven metrics, right? So banks are very, very hungry about them, and 811 can never service them, right? They are very clear that 811 are for the masses. It's not for premium segment, right? Premium segment requires Swiggy. Premium segment requires very, very fast transactions, right? They don't want to wait in a queue. They don't want to send a request. They want a WhatsApp channel for solving their problems, right? That is where we want to focus on. And thankfully, banks have realized that this is not the place they want to play or build or fastly iterate, right? Hence, we are able to see great tractions. And that is where I think we differentiate ourselves on saying we don't want to fight with the bank, because bank is just one part of the puzzle. Then you have investments, then you have credit, then you have loan, then you have payroll processing, then you have insurance, so many things to do, right? Bank just provides you one entry point, right? Then scale it out and build money for almost everyone. We don't want to be the cost center for the bank, right? We want to be a fee-based channel for the bank as well.
Got it. Makes sense. So basically a symbiotic relationship so that both can coexist.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Akash, your views on B2C side, man?
Yeah, no, look, Vibhore, very interesting ways to sort of build business. I think if one sees the existing, large incumbent banks, the advantage they have is a huge sort of balance sheet, huge brand, huge physical presence. And so in certain ways, I think you need to pick and choose your battles, right? So I feel one of when you're sort of, they will always react if you come try and eat their lunch. So verticalizing the financial services to cater to an audience which either they are not concentrating on, or there is enough profit potential that you and the bank can coexist, are very interesting ways to build businesses. But at the heart of it, I want to reiterate one of the points that Vibhore mentioned is banks over the last decade or so have sort of adopted a one-size-fits-all approach, whether it's MSMEs or whether it's retail consumers. And I think the opportunity lies, as Vibhore mentioned, is on hyper-personalization. And and maybe you personalize for a particular category of folks, or you sort of be enable the banks to help serve a certain section. I think are interesting ways to build businesses. But what is clear is that there are underserved communities, both at both sides of the spectrum, both premium and sort of at the masses, and which needs fintech to help access them better.
Sure. Thanks, guys. I think we have run out of time. There are a lot of questions in the Q&A section. Maybe we'll try to address them somehow. But this has been an absolute delight talking to you guys, getting to know about this sector. So excited about this space. Vibhore, keep up doing the great work. We'll just keep track of this sector and keep coming up with these kind of events.
Yeah,
fairly
I'll ping Aakash next.
That's very nice to meet you.
Same here, man.
Cheers.
Thanks, Abhijit.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.